thanks again for you guys that are joining us this evening. It's midnight for me actually out here in Malaysia, and early morning for Tyler in Texas. Um, and just to go over the housekeeping really quick before Tyler takes over, basically, if you haven't been to a knowledge drop before, we'll spend the first half of our time on this lovely presentation that Tyler put together for you guys. If you have questions that come up during it, feel free to use the question and answer box, just because we'll try to save some time at the very end to get to those questions. And then if you want to just chat to each other, feel free to use the chats. And make sure that you click all panelists and attendees if you want everybody to see what you're chatting about. And then, yeah, this thing, as I mentioned, we're recording it right now. It'll be saved in the Knowledge Drop archive, and you guys will be given that link. We'll put it up on our remote YouTube channel, and you can share this with, anybody. Maybe you got like parents that are not looking after this kind of stuff. I'm sure that my dad says like, hey, is my Kindle in my computer, and like weird technology things like that. So I'm sure he's not doing any of this. So I'll probably share it over to him. Yeah, hopefully this is something that you guys, know that you need to learn a little bit more about. And Tyler is an expert on this stuff. So without further ado, take it away, man. And thanks again for doing this, Tyler.
Yeah. My name is Tyler Zan. I was with Darian, as Travis mentioned. So we finished up in June of this year. And so now I'm in the Citizen program. Quick shout out to Jenna, who was our operations lead, who apparently has joined us on this call. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about 5 steps to secure your digital life. The main thing I want people to take away from this is that, honestly, you don't really need to be a computer whiz or any sort of geek to be able to figure this stuff out. Security is possible in 2017. It's never been more accessible to the average person, and it's something really that everybody should care about. I've been in the field of information security and compliance for 13 years, so I've been dealing with this stuff for a very long time, and it's gotten easier and easier and easier every year. And that's important because now people live online as much or more as they live offline. I mean, this stuff matters, like, at least, especially for us, as digital nomads, our life is in our laptop. It is in our phone. So I think that this is something that's really critical for everyone. So we're going to talk about 5 specific actions you can take to greatly improve your personal information security posture. So first thing I think everybody should do is to use a VPN. Why this is important is that any information that passes across a network is visible to that network unless it's encrypted. So if you're using public Wi-Fi in a co-working space or a coffee shop or a cafe or a library, a random other person could be sitting at the next table over at Starbucks and could actually be snooping on what you're doing. They could see what information you're transmitting. Potentially, if the websites you're connecting to aren't properly secure, they could even see your username and password when you log into a website. Also, if you're traveling, what you may encounter along the way is that you might deal with sketchy ISPs with countries where it's apparently now the United States is in this boat too, where it's legal for the ISP to actually scrape your data to sell to advertising companies. Or redirect your traffic for commercial interests, such as like inserting advertisements into web pages that weren't there before, but your ISP is actually putting that in, not the web page. You'll also encounter oppressive governments that snoop on all the traffic or block certain services like Skype or WhatsApp. So in order to get around these sort of things, a VPN is essential. And it's even more essential now because just last month, there is a new attack called Crack that breaks WPA2 PSK, which was the best way to secure a wireless network. So even if you're connected to a network that uses a password to connect now, you are not secure. That doesn't do anything for you anymore. Wi-Fi is basically broken. So you need VPN. It's pretty much essential. That's why I put it number 1. And you can choose a VPN service. There's a lot of remotes that are already using one. You can definitely ask in Slack and find out what people are using. When you see the slides after this, that blue link is actually a link to a big chart that compares all of the 300 some odd services that this guy collected. My personal recommendation, though, is set up your own. So I wrote instructions, and that's a link to those instructions that are on my website, step by step on how to set up a VPN server on a instance from DigitalOcean. Cost you about $5 a month, and you are the only one that uses that. Therefore, no one's going to be looking at your traffic except for you. So that's the most secure setup, but obviously it's a little bit cheaper if you use a service. You can get them as cheap as $1 a month. The second thing I think everybody should do is use a password manager. Why this is important? So this image at the top is from a website called Have I Been Pwned by a security researcher that works at Microsoft called Troy Hunt. Anyway, as you can see, almost 5 billion accounts have been pwned. Some of those are repeats. They're accounts on different websites, but it's the same person. I can tell you I'm very security conscious, and I've had my account covered in these breaches 17 times. So of the 252 owned websites, 17 of them I had an account registered at. And only 4% of the breaches that occurred in 2015 were secure breaches. Hopefully that's higher now, but that means basically the data was encrypted. So they stole the data, but they weren't able to use it for anything. So the vast majority of these, it's not encrypted, and they get your username and your password for that website. Why this is a problem is if you're like a lot of folks, you use the same password on multiple websites, and your username is your email address in most places. So if somebody has your email address and they have your password from one website, they can just try it in a bunch of other websites to see if it works and eventually get in. So if you're using your same password on Facebook that you used on some random web forum for, I don't know, people who like Beanie Babies or something, and that website gets hacked, now they can get into your Facebook account or get into your email, and from your email get into any other account by using the forgot password link. So a password manager makes it really simple because you use one password that you have to remember, and then the password manager stores everything else and allows you to generate random unique passwords, which you should use unique passwords on every website. It's not enough to just use a password manager though. Like I said, you need unique passwords, but you should also enable two-factor authentication if it's available. A lot of people hammer on 2FA. I think it's actually far more important to use a unique password for every website because you can't control the security of the sites that you connect to. So it's better to have a unique password. So worst case scenario, it gets hacked, you change your password on one site and you're good. There are a bunch of password managers out there, but there are 3 I think are really good. I use 1Password. It's pretty Mac-centric. They do have a Windows version and an Android version now, but it's better on Macs. So if you're not on a Mac, probably use one of these other 2. But Dashling's really nice. LastPass has been around for ages. And they all basically work on the same concept. You have 1Password that's used to generate an encryption key that encrypts basically the database of all your other passwords. And so nobody else can see what those passwords are. Only you can because you know what that password is. So use a really strong, long password for this. But that's the only one you have to memorize. And then everything else is stored in there for you. Like I have like 672 accounts in 1Password, and I don't know what any of those accounts what those passwords are. I just know what I use to log into 1Password.
I'll just say quickly too, I used LastPass, that last suggestion that you put on there, and I'm like not the most tech savvy dude ever, but it was pretty easy for me to implement and figure out how to use it. So yeah, it's not like you've been saying about all these points, it's not impossible for the untech savvy amongst us.
Yeah, they're really easy to use. It's pretty straightforward. LastPass is browser-based. The other 2 have desktop apps, but it's super, super easy to set up, and they work with your phone as well. And if you're on iPhone, it's even integrated now where a lot of apps, you can just click the little lock icon, and it'll automatically launch your password manager, so you don't have to copy and paste on your phone. But yeah, the third thing is definitely use full disk encryption. Why this is important is basically if someone steals your device and you did not encrypt your drives, they have access to all that data, whether that's inappropriate photos that you've taken of yourself that you don't necessarily want to share, or whether that's corporate secrets from your employer, or it's just your financial information, or maybe it's nothing on there important, but you don't necessarily want to share it out to the world. And the reality is that this is more likely while you're traveling because you're in new environments. You're clearly not a local, so you're a larger target for thieves because they know that you're not going to be there to pursue them. So, it's a problem. And on average, a laptop somewhere in the world is stolen every 53 seconds. So during the course of this conversation, 30 people's laptops will get stolen. In 2011, more than 70 million smartphones were lost or stolen. I know in Darien, we had a ton of people get their smartphones stolen. In one case, a group of people in Barcelona, one dude stole 3 people's phone right after the other as they were walking down the sidewalk, like looking at their phones with a GPS app. And since they didn't see this guy coming, he just like walked by, grabbed the phones, and just pulled a hoodie over his head and dashed off to the nearest metro station. And that's all it takes. So 60% of smartphones contain sensitive data in 2011. I think that number is higher now. I know me, I've got all my contacts, I've got my photos, I've got, my Facebook session is logged in. I've got logged into my email, my calendar, all sorts of stuff's on there. And the thing is, this is super easy because every major operating system natively supports this. Within 3 to 5 steps, you can enable this and then basically never have to think about it because it's just solved. On iOS, it's super easy. You just set a password and you're done. If you've already enabled Touch ID, then this is already enabled. So super easy stuff. Really important though. Fourth thing I think everybody should do is use an ad blocker. This one's a little more contentious. I know some people work in ad technology. The reality is that advertising companies do not put the effort necessary to filter out malicious advertisements. They will take money from whoever the highest bidder for that ad space is. And what has happened is malicious advertisers do exist. It's called malvertising. And they basically set up banner ads that will use a little bit of script code in the back end to install a virus on your computer when you visit a website that's affected by the ad. And these things have affected major websites: CNN, the New York Times, YouTube, Spotify, and even The Onion. So, this is something that just, at this point, for security reasons, you should use an ad blocker. I understand there's some ethical concerns around like not seeing an advertisement that's helping pay for someone's content that they're providing for you. But I'm sorry, the ad industry has killed itself, and it's time for us to find a different way to monetize the internet because advertising is now a serious security risk. It also affects privacy as well. For best results, I recommend using the Firefox web browser because it also has some other privacy enhancing things. But you can use Chrome or Safari or Internet Explorer. In any of them, there's an extension called uBlock Origin. It is fully open source, and it is very capable. I recommend you use uBlock, not AdBlock Plus, for a lot of different reasons. And then additionally, in Firefox, you have the option to use no script, which is kind of like the nuclear option because it blocks all scripts on all websites unless you specifically whitelist them, but definitely great for security. And then finally, step 5 is to have secure backups. The reality is, as much as there's scary stuff out there with people who could hack you and things like that, or steal something of yours that has important data on it, the reality is you're just as likely, whether it's stolen or your drive dies, to lose that data entirely, and that's going to have a huge impact on you as well. So any good information security starts with making sure you have secure backups. So each year that goes by, you have roughly a 5% chance of your drive failing, and that's largely because people, obviously if you got your laptop in your bag and stuff, it's getting banged around when you're putting it in the airplane, in the cargo bins, or just life essentially. So these numbers are quite high. It's relatively likely that a drive may fail. And the average cost of business for a data loss incident in 2017 worldwide was $3.6 million per incident. Now, obviously, that's kind of high because there's a lot of large corporations that report into this this study. But, it does cost money if you're a business and you lose data. Data, in a lot of cases, is the lifeblood of a business. It's what is the asset that has value for them. So backups are important. For backups to be considered secure, I think they have to be performed with open source software. And I think the service has to provide zero knowledge encryption. Now, that's my personal opinion, but I think it's strongly supported by evidence. Zero knowledge encryption, for those that don't know, what that means is essentially that the company who is providing your backups cannot see your data because it's encrypted on your computer locally and then sent to them rather than being sent to them and they encrypt it on their side. So there are 2 services I recommend, Tarsnap and SpiderOak. SpiderOak is much more friendly to set up and easy to use. It's a little more expensive. Tarsnap's cheaper, but it requires a little bit more technical knowledge. But both these services have been around for ages. I use both of them personally, and they both support zero knowledge encryption and provide open source client software. So just to reiterate, keys to success. You got to take this stuff seriously. If you're like me, you're a digital nomad, I assume you are. My laptop is like my life. Like, I take my laptop and I put it in this backpack, I lock it up, and I travel with that thing. I never let it out of my sight because it's literally my life. It's got my photos from travel on it. It's got all my work stuff on it. It's got all my financial stuff when I have to deal with taxes, and it's got all the paperwork saved from when I had to scan stuff to get visas and things like that. It is my life. So this stuff is super important. So you got to take the time to take it seriously. Invest the time to build and maintain good security practices in everything you do. There's a lot of other things you can do that will help your security as well. besides these 5 steps. But if you just do these 5 things, you'll put yourself way ahead of the curve. It's kind of like, you know, you probably all heard the old saw, like, how do you get away from a bear that's trying to eat you? You don't have to run the fastest. You just have to run faster than the other guy. Well, it's kind of the same idea. If you put yourself ahead of the curve with security, you remove yourself from being a juicy target, and you put yourself into a situation where if you were targeted, you have less to worry about in the aftermath, right? Instead of having to deal with your bank and cancel all your credit cards and get, you know, put locks on your credit report and file with the FTC that you've had your identity stolen, and, you know, deal with changing every password on every website and all of the things that can happen if you get hacked, or, you know, lose access to a device that has this information on it and it wasn't encrypted. You just don't have to think about any of that stuff. You change your, you know, you get one breach you're affected by, you change your password on one website and you're done. You're covered. Reality, though, is some of this stuff is complicated. So if you need help, ask for help from qualified professionals. You can ask me for help. I'm happy to answer questions in Slack. Most important thing is don't procrastinate. Don't put it off for another day. Don't do things that will make you a target. You know, and don't impact the bad security practices that you have today and how those can impact your employer or your clients. Like, the thing is, if you put this off, you'll forget about it. You'll move on with your life. And I think a lot of people kind of have the idea they use Gmail, they use Facebook, and those companies have, like, you know, they have an Apple product. Those companies have really smart security people working for them. So I'm good. I don't have to worry about this stuff. And while it's true those companies have really smart security people working for them, those companies have really smart security people working for them that are saying basically the exact same thing that I'm saying today, which is, yeah, your device is more secure against remote attackers and hackers than it used to be. But that doesn't help you if someone steals your phone. It doesn't help you if someone breaks into a website that you have logged into and you use the same password somewhere else. So, you know, there are a lot of things you still have to take responsibility to do yourself if you want to be secure. And you can't put them off, because you could walk away from this call, go get coffee, and set your phone down, go to the restroom, and someone walks off with your phone. You know, it could be today. So don't put it off. At the very least, today, before each of you go to bed tonight, I want you to figure out how to enable full disk encryption on your device. If you got a phone, usually you just have to set a password and you're done. That's all that's required. And you should have a password set anyway. But do it on every device you're traveling with. Enable full disk encryption, find and sign up for a VPN provider, or make a commitment to build your own, and pick a password manager and start using it. You don't have to put all your passwords in right at the beginning. Once you've got it installed, it'll start remembering passwords as you log into websites normally, and it'll slowly build a database up. But these 3 things you should start doing today, absolutely today: full disk encryption, VPN, and a password manager. But that's basically the 5 steps, I think, that can really help you secure your digital life. So I'm going to go ahead and open it to questions. You guys are always welcome to contact me on Slack. My nickname's Level 3 Fun. So
Love that nickname. Maybe my favorite Slack name.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. I don't know if you want to jump out of screen share and go back to our
Oh, yeah, sure.
beautiful faces here while we take questions. But we already got a few questions coming in. If you guys have more, keep them going. The first one that came in pretty early on was from Phil. He's asking about, does he need a VPN for his phone and tablet and computer and all of his devices? I think you kind of spoke to that, but yeah.
Yes. So you should use a VPN on all of your devices. Most providers, and if you set it up yourself, are going to use a piece of software called OpenVPN to provide it. And OpenVPN has a client for iOS, it has a client for Android, it has a client for Windows, it has a client for Mac, and it has a client for Linux. So it doesn't really matter what device you're using, it has a client that supports that, and then you can use that VPN on all of those devices. So for instance, on my phone, again, I'm a Mac guy, so I have an iPhone, I've got a Mac, and I run my own VPN. I have it set up on all those devices. So when I would go to, say, Morocco, where the government spies on all the traffic that goes across the internet in the entire country, I put in the SIM card, the local SIM in my phone, and then the very first thing I did after getting it set up was to connect to the VPN, so I could use everything on my phone normally, even over the wireless connection on my phone.
Awesome. Scott's asking if you can give just a little more detail on what full disk encryption actually means, and then like first steps towards setting it up.
Sure. Yeah. So full disk encryption, it's kind of in the name. Literally, it means your entire disk of your computer is encrypted. So how it works is effectively that there's a password set that is required to decrypt the drive. And when you first start your computer, you'll get asked that password before the operating system fully starts. So in Windows, it's called BitLocker. In OS X, it's called File Vault. On Linux, it's this thing called Lux. And in each case, what happens is when you boot your computer up, it'll ask you for the encryption password, and then it'll boot normally, and then you may be asked again for your normal login password for your laptop. And so what happens is literally all of the data on that drive is encrypted. The whole disk is encrypted. And so if someone steals your computer and they take the drive out and they inspect it, they can't access any of the data on that drive. On a phone, it works a little bit differently because phones use a piece of hardware to enforce this. So on Apple products, it's called Secure Enclave. On Android devices, they use the ARM Secure Zone device. But essentially, it's the same idea. You have a password. The moment you set a password, it encrypts the contents of the phone. And then if you connect, you turn the device on, you have to enter your password. That decrypts the contents of the device.
Awesome. Yeah, I
And
need
as far as
that
setting it up,
little clarification
sorry,
as well.
as far as setting it up on a Mac, it's super easy. Actually, I'll just screen share real quick and show you since I'm on a Mac. It's literally this easy. You go to System Preferences, you go to Security, and you click on File Vault. In my case, you have to log in to make changes. And there's a button here. Mine says Turn Off because it's enabled, obviously. And you click a button that says Turn On File Vault. That's it. That's all you have to do. It will take maybe an hour or two to enable it because it has to actually encrypt everything that's on the drive right now. But it'll give you a little progress indicator, and if you reboot during that, it's not a problem. And it just uses your existing login. So if you signed up on your Mac with your Apple iCloud account, when you log in with iCloud, it uses that session token to decrypt your drive as well.
Are there any like functional changes that happen to your computer, like in terms of like using it after you do the full disk encryption, or not?
No, it has effectively no performance impact in 2017. It used to cause a performance impact. So if you have a really old computer, maybe it'll slow down a little bit. But if you have anything recent, it's completely transparent. You won't even notice that it's on. It just protects you in the background.
Awesome. Phil had another question in here too that I think is a good one. He says, the idea that one source has all my passwords scares me to death. What happens if I lose that password? Is there like a customer service person I can actually talk to for those three companies that you mentioned that can help me sort out any sort of problem like that? I ran into a similar problem, like trying to get started with cryptocurrency, where like I literally just lost my first little investment because like I lost the password and there was like nobody that could help me. So yeah, I think that's a great question.
Yep, that's a good question. And just like you mentioned with your cryptocurrency wallet, the whole point of the security is that because it's encrypted with strong encryption and you're the only one that has the password, no one, and I do mean no one on earth can get access to it but you, which means if you lose your password, you are fucked. So don't lose your password. So basically you have to make sure that you remember the password. But the thing is like, as an example with 1Password, I have it set up so that it automatically locks after 15 minutes. So what that means is that, about every 15 minutes, if I have to log into a website, which I don't log into a website every 15 minutes, but I have to type the password, I'm never going to forget that password. I have now probably typed that password more than I have typed any other thing in my entire life. I will never forget it to the day that I die. No big deal. And it's a really long password that no one else knows. So
what is it?
Don't really have to change it. Yeah. Not going to
just testing, just testing.
One thing you can do, however, is you can potentially, if it does reduce your security somewhat, but not terribly, is you can write the password down on a good old-fashioned piece of paper, which is something that's not digital. Therefore, it can't be remotely accessed, and it can't be accessed if your digital device is compromised. And stick that piece of paper in a safe or in a file cabinet or something. Don't carry it with you where it could be stolen, but stick it in a file cabinet or something. There is. There's an emergency kit in 1Password that you can print. It makes a little PDF and you can print it out and stick it in a safe. I opted not to do that because it does obviously incur some things, but it's something you can do. And honestly, if you're traveling, it's probably not a bad idea to leave. Exactly, Jenna. It's not a bad idea to leave that with somebody at home, because if worst case scenario happens, and I seriously don't think that's going to happen, but if the worst case scenario happens and you die, somebody should be able to get into your password so they can access your accounts, shut them down, do all the things that have to be done. Because that's a whole nother pain in the ass in the new digital life, is what happens when someone dies. How do you shut down their Facebook account? You know how many ghosts there are on Facebook? It's ridiculous. Anyway.
Good. No, that's a great point. And I'm guessing that you would find it hilarious that I just keep all my passwords in a note on my Mac. I'm sure that's just like the least secure thing ever, but that's what I've been doing. So
as long as they're unique per website, it's not any worse. It's not any worse than, it's not as good as it could be. Right. Yeah. But it's better than using the same password everywhere, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe I'll write them on an actual note and just like stick that in my wallet or somewhere, be a little more secure.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. That'll be the thing I do before I go to sleep tonight. But I really appreciate your time, Tyler, and like your information on this subject is just out of this world. So I will do some things before I go to bed tonight. Hopefully the rest of you guys on this call as well will do the same. And thanks again for joining. Like Tyler mentioned, he's happy if you guys Slack him at Level 3 Fun on our nation Slack if you have any follow-up questions about this. But just in the interest of time, I'm going to shut it down. And yeah, thanks again, guys.
And if you're really interested, you can ping me on Slack and ask me what my most Level 3 Fun story is, because it does have a tie-in to why you should use a VPN.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I love a good cliffhanger at the end of a knowledge drop. So yeah, reach out to Tyler. And Coca, this is getting recorded. It'll be shared in the Knowledge Drop archive. So probably in a couple of days, you'll see it on the archive that's pinned in the Knowledge Drop channel. All right, thanks.